another reason for the outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789, or you can say the circumstance that is responsible for the outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789 in the late 18th century, that is the role of philosophers. So there are so many eminent philosophers, so those who give the different type of democratic ideas, and that started to spread in France, and people of France were influenced by these philosophical ideas and which were based on the democratic ideas. So in this way, the French philosophers gave ideas on envisaging a society that was based on the freedom and equal laws and opportunities, and these were put forward by the philosophers such as the prominent philosophers like John Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu and Voltaire. So the famous book that was written by John Locke, the name of the book is called The Two Treatises of the Government, where he sought to refute the doctrine of the divine and absolute right of the king or the monarch. Because when the absolute monarchy was there, when the old regime, or that is called ancien regime in France, where the monarch is considered as the supreme authority. So the monarch believed on this particular principle, the divine right of kingship. Means the king himself considered as the representative of the god to rule over the people. So this is refuted by John Locke, and he described it in his famous book, and that is called The Power Should Be Divided Among the Different Organs of the Government. So the power should not be vested in the hand of one person, that you can say the monarch. So he condemned and he refuted this particular doctrine, this principle of governance which was there in France, and that is based on the doctrine of divine rights and absolute right of the monarch. The second is Rousseau, the famous philosopher of France, who wrote a famous book that is called The Social Contract, where he explained that a government should be there, that is on the consent of the people, not on the basis of the law of heredity. That the law of heredity that should be comes to an end, and in their place the common people of France, they should have to elect their own government. So that the government should be formed on the consent of the people. Consent means on the basis of the vote that should be cast by each and every people in France. So this philosophy, this idea that is propagated by Rousseau in his famous book Social Contract. And then another famous philosopher, so who is called Montesquieu, and who had written the famous book The Spirit of Laws. So the Spirit of Laws, which was written by Montesquieu, and where he proposed the division of the power within the government between the different organs of the government, that is called the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. So this model of the government was put into force in USA, and afterwards the 13 colonies, those are declared as independence from Britain, and this type of principles, those are allowed and those are applied in the newly independent countries in the different part of the world. So these ideas of these philosophers were discussed intensively in the slogans and the coffee houses, and spread among through the books and the newspapers at the time. So these are the different circumstances, we can say, but the most important one, that is the immediate cause, the cause that is responsible for the immediate outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789. So I told you the economic cause, the political cause, the social cause, the role of philosophers, and the immediate cause. So there was no increase in wages of the most of the workers. Under these circumstances, Louis XVI planned to impose the further taxes. So he called the State General's meeting in 1789, and which was followed by the tennis court oath. So that I have told you that when the king called for the State General's meeting, because without the consultation of the State General's meeting, not a single paisa should be collected by the government from France. So that's why in 1789 the French monarch called for the State General's meeting, and when the dispute that I already told you in the social cause, that when the dispute which was arise among the first and second estate and the third estate people on the proposal of the king, so then this occurred, and it lead towards the another event which was occurred, that is called the tennis court oath. The third estate people, they denied the proposal that was given by the king. So one estate, one vote. This is the proposal given by the monarch. But the third estate representative, they demanded that one representative, one vote. So on this particular point, so the dispute that was started, and the third estate representatives, so they are separated from the State General's meeting, and they are congregated in the nearby tennis court, which was there in the Versailles Palace. So as they all are gathered in the tennis court and they had taken an oath, they should not have to disperse themselves until frame a constitution. So this famous oath is called the tennis court oath in France. So at last, so the State General, the meeting, it was comes to an end without any result, and the third estate people, they declared themselves at the National Assembly, and now these members, they started to frame a constitution, and the new constitution, it was came into being on 1791. So when the third estate people, so they lead the revolution in such a way that now King Louis XVI now abdicated from the throne, and now the throne, it was passed in the hand of the revolutionaries, and a new system of administration that was established after the end of this absolute monarchy, and that is called a constitutional monarchy. So constitutional monarchy means now the power of the monarch, it was limited. So there are a number of provisions, those are added in the constitution which was adopted in 1791. So what are the different provisions and other prominent events relating to the French Revolution? So now I am going to explain. Third estate people, they congregated in the tennis court, and they have decided to frame a constitution for France, and they declared themselves at the National Assembly. So all the 600 representatives of the third estate, so they declared themselves at the National Assembly, and the task in front of them to draft a constitution. So in this way, the drafting of the constitution that was comes to an end in 1791. So this constitution, which was framed in 1791, able to limit the power of the monarch. So now, after 1791, the absolute monarchy that was converted to the constitutional monarchy. What is the meaning of this term, constitutional monarchy? Constitutional monarchy means the power of the monarch will have to limit, and the other powers will be transferred in the hand of the three organs of the government, that is called legislature, executive and judiciary. So in 1791, France converted to a constitutional monarchy. So then we have to see that what are the different type of provisions of, or what are the different objectives of this newly framed constitution which was drafted in 1791. French Constitution of 1791 was the first written constitution for France. One of the basic precepts of the French Revolution was adopting constitutionality and establishing the popular sovereignty. The Declaration of the Rights of a Man that was adopted on 26th of August 1789 eventually became the preamble of the Constitution, which was adopted on 3rd September 1791. The main objective of this constitution was to limit the powers of the monarch, and these powers, instead of being concentrated in the hand of one person, were now separated and assigned to the different organs of the government, that is called legislature, executive and judiciary. And this made France a constitutional monarchy. And another one, that is the rights such as the right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before law were established as the natural rights. And it was the duty of the state to protect each citizen's natural rights. And this is the cardinal principle of democracy, which was born from this constitution. The three cardinal principles of democracy: liberty, equality and fraternity. So those are born from this new constitution, and that we can say as a contribution towards the human beings by this French Revolution. And it was the Constitution of 1791 vested the power to make the laws in the National Assembly, which was indirectly elected by the people. And the National Assembly at the time abolished many institutions which were injurious to the liberty and the equality of the rights. So these are the main objectives and these are the main provisions of the constitution which was drafted in 1791 in France. So we can say that the new constitution of France gave birth to the three cardinal principles of democracy, that every modern democracy they adopt these three prominent democratic principles like liberty, equality and fraternity.